Hello, everybody. Is an athlete really an artist? Is a purely physical performance like, say, a slam dunk, something you compare with a pirouette? Is hitting a three-point play as impressive as, say, a flawless performance of Haydn's Trumpet Concerto in E-flat major? Well, our guest today has his opinions. Like an athlete, his skills are displayed sometimes in an ensemble, sometimes in a solo performance, sometimes within the confines of a structured pattern, sometimes in a free-form improvisational mode. Wynton Marsalis is one of America's musical treasures, the only man to win a Grammy in both jazz and classical categories in the same year, and he's done it twice. But Wynton is also an avid sports fan with a deep passion for basketball, football, boxing. Today, in a special sports look, a perspective on sports as art with an American artist and an admiring sports fan, Wynton Marsalis. Later, Coach George Allen, who has almost no musical talent, but a great eye for athletic talent. And we'll talk about Week 12 in the National Football League. But first, Wynton Marsalis, it's a real pleasure to have you on our program.
My pleasure.
I want to talk about something regarding sport as art. I had a letter not too long ago saying, it's very nice, it's very graceful, sport, but it ain't art. Because those aren't artists, not true artists. You disagree with that?
Well, certainly. Because the main proposition of art is to extend, elaborate, and refine a style. When you have art, it's just any creation. You know, if you pick up a trumpet and you make a sound, it's some type of art. Mm-hmm. So what you find in basketball is that the proposition of basketball is just take the ball, dribble it, and push it up from your hands into the goal. Mm-hmm. And when you see people jumping and skying and looking pretty and dribbling between their legs and they're extending the proposition of putting it, they're elaborating on what the thing of basketball is. And when you see somebody like, Elgin Baylor used to be like that, or Wilt, or Kareem, or Magic Johnson, Isaiah, all the brothers who, they have the pretty moves, and I mean, you get points for style. Mm-hmm. Style is an aesthetic proposition, so it has to be an art.
Speaking of style, we could talk about a man who's more or less stylized the game for most years of anybody in National Basketball League history, NBA. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who also happens to be a jazz fan and a Wynton Marsalis fan. On Friday, we talked to Kareem about what it is that jazz gives him for his art form. Here's what Kareem said.
Jazz has been kind of like the background music and my metronome, so to speak. I kind of pace myself through the seasons of my life by listening to music, and I think it helps keep me in harmony.
Anybody come to mind when you're out in the court sometime and you're in a proper groove, maybe Miles or somebody, one of your favorites down through the years?
Well, yeah, I hear tunes from time to time. I'd like to just pass a compliment on the Wynton. I really enjoyed the way they played the Star Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl.
Right.
I think that went by a lot of people. I thought that was exquisite.
That's a pretty nice compliment, yeah?
Right, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kareem is my man.
Right. Now we're going to take a look at some visuals of Kareem. What is it about Kareem that gets you going?
Well, the first thing about Kareem is that he has overwhelming intelligence. And that's something that's key to being an artist. Now, he uses his intelligence to develop the style of the game. And Kareem has revolutionized the game. He's unstoppable. He's played longer than anybody. And this is because he knows how to take care of himself. And also, he's a student of the game, like any musician is. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of his style in basketball, it reminds me of Monk. Like you can't get an angle on Kareem. And then when you think you have the angle on him, he'll do something like Monk will play like a blues phrase, do-de-do-de-bwee-dot, do-de-do-de-bwee-dot. That's like the same phrase. People have been playing that since the 1800s. But he'll just play it a certain way. He places it a certain way in the time. And you think, well, I know what this is, but you really don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. That's like Kareem will throw a shot on you, it'll look like the same thing, but it won't be the same thing.
The interesting qualities between jazz musicians and professional basketball as athletes, the parallels. I mean, the fact that you guys play one-night stands, you play within the group, just like a jazz musician, just like a basketball player. Some nights it's improvisational, some nights it's more structured. But it's always, I think this was a great quote, Red Mitchell said this, jazz, and I say the same thing about basketball, is something that is thought, felt, and played simultaneously.
Yes. That's the important thing, is the whole proposition of motion, which is essential to jazz and essential to basketball. And that's how jazz revolutionized art in the Western sense. That's jazz is the creation of the moment. Like when you deal with the music of Beethoven, he wrote his music down and then people played it, but it was written already. And when you deal with jazz, that music is being created and developed by a group of individuals while you are listening to it. You know, you go see a painting in a museum, it was painted before you saw it.
Why is there a kinship, you think, or maybe more so in the past than these days, between you know, the athletic artist, the basketball player, and the jazz musician? Not necessarily the pop musician, but the jazz musician.
Well, because a lot of the developments of the aesthetics of athletics came out of the Afro-American community, like the music did. And just basketball is a prime example. You know, like Jelly Roll Morton always said, well, you know, we would take the Star Spangled Banner. This is in New Orleans. You know, they would see, they would take Stars and Stripes Forever. You know, they would be going, let's say they're going do beep boop beep boop beep boop 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 beep boom. The band's going beep beep boop boop boom 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 boom. That's the beat they're playing. Boom beep beep. Now the New Orleans music say it's the biddle 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 beep boop beep boop biddle boop beep boop beep boop 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 beep boop beep boop boop beep boop beep boop. Now that's still Stars and Stripes Forever. Right, but it's just done in another type of way to show the joyousness and a certain type of American feeling that comes out of the community. Now you take a basketball player like Dr. J or Elgin or Kareem or, you know,
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. Well, what can you say about him? He's the man for this present time, you know. And what they're doing is they're taking something that Naismith dealt with, which was basically a dribbling catch, shooting a two-hand set shot, and they said, oh yeah, we see that, but this is what this is what the deal is. You know what I mean? And like that's the thing about art, is it might come from somewhere, but it doesn't have to show reverence to where it comes from.
Wynton Marsalis, our guest on Sports. We'll come back in just a few moments. We'll talk about basketball as a classical art form too, after this. An offbeat, an unusual sports look today with one of America's musical treasures, I think, 25-year-old Wynton Marsalis, who has won a classical and a jazz Grammy twice in the same year, 2 times in the same year, and he's the only man who's ever done that. I want to talk about basketball in a different mode, musical mode, and that is in terms of classical music and almost ballet, because it's Kareem's contention that basketball is closer to dance than it is to music. Your theory?
Well, when we use the term classical form, that means anything that is a set way and requires a certain amount of practice, and you have to have a dogmatic type of approach to developing it. And basketball players first they have to use their bodies like dancers. They have to be in condition and in shape, and then all of this shape and conditioning leads to the aesthetic ball players. These are the guys like Michael Jordan and so forth. It leads them to want to look pretty. You know, and they have to develop their strengths just like ballet dancers do. I mean, they do hours of drills and exercises, which is a form of classical training. And when you take a trumpet and you practice like scales and the same concerto and certain exercises to get physical, to get dexterity and sound and stylization, that's like doing certain drills. And I mean, look how pretty that is. You know what I'm saying?
That was Michael Cooper right there. You know, you were saying something in the break that I thought was interesting, that if we had developed our musical tastes in this country, this is your opinion, the way we have developed our athletic tastes, we'd be a lot better off as a society.
Oh, certainly. I mean, you take basketball right now, at the time that Wilt was around, or Elgin Baylor, or George Mikan, I mean, you can go back as far as you want. The athletes now are prettier, they're stronger, they're faster. Now, I mean, I won't say they're better, but just they've transformed, you know, they've developed what went on in the past. They can jump higher, the game gets meaner, you know, in football the players are stronger, they're faster, you know, the game plans are more intricate. That doesn't necessarily mean the game itself is better, but just the athletes are better trained and they're dealing with a higher level of athletic skill. Boxing, I mean, you know, all that is the same. Now in music, any criteria used to judge music, like the music is not more complicated. The instrumentalists are not better. The band system is not necessarily better. The amount of, like you take during the time of Duke Ellington, or the fact that in the 1940s we had musicians like Charlie Parker and Monk and Miles and Clifford Brown, all these people came out of this era. We are producing this level of musician now.
I want to talk about, that's interesting you mentioned that. Is there an equivalent in an athletic sense to a Miles Davis? We got a shot of Miles Davis in the ring, and this guy always wanted to be a boxer. Maybe it's because he always wanted to be a fighter too. Is there an equivalent to an athletic Miles Davis?
I'm trying to think who would be like that, like Miles in athletics. Let me think for a second.
I kind of put you on the spot there, I guess.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. There doesn't seem to be that kind of revolutionary, quote-unquote, figure these days in athletics.
Well, Michael Jordan, I mean, he's revolutionary, but he has a different type of style. His style is more like Bird's. You know, and you take Charlie Parker, right? That's an easy example. Charlie Parker was a master of many different styles. You know what I mean? Like Michael Jordan, you can force him to the left if you want. You can make him take the jump shot. You can make him go to the hoop on you. You can make him jump off the left or the right leg. The boy can play serious defense. He's fast. He's strong. He can jump. Charlie Parker is like that. Anything you want to play, any tempo, any key, any tune, any style, he was right there with his horn. All right, let's play this style.
How about your idol, the man that you call the most democratic figure in the 20th century, musically or otherwise, Louis Armstrong? Is there somebody that's like Louis Armstrong?
Well, you know,
or he's with Carmen McRae.
We were talking before. Louis Armstrong, he revolutionized the history of music, and everybody in American music imitates him.
Okay, so, how about a sports equivalent?
Well, Muhammad Ali is the closest one to me, but he didn't really. I mean, he revolutionized a lot of our views towards sports, but he didn't really revolutionize boxing as much as Louis Armstrong revolutionized music. But he's the closest figure. And then what you were telling me earlier, Jackie Robinson, he has to be considered because he had to put up with so much garbage to try to get the country to live up to its own ideology. And you know, that ideology still is not really being lived up to. But he was one of the pioneers, you know, like people letting black cats out on the field when the cat would go to play. And I mean, you know, man, that kind of ignorance. He had to deal with all of that. And you know, the thing that I would like to see athletes do more is they should reach back and pay homage to the athletes who came before them.
Right.
Like Michael Jordan and them, they should recognize the cats like Elgin and Wilt Chamberlain, because that gives the whole sport more continuity. And it gives a certain type of brotherhood to the thing.
Well said. Wynton Marsalis, our guest on Sports Slick. We'll come back in just a few moments. Guests on Sports League receive a Precor Precision 612 rower featuring innovative design and precision engineering. Transform aerobic exercise into exhilarating body movement with Precor. With Wynton Marsalis, who's got a classical album coming out in January. I'll plug that. He didn't want to, but I'll do it anyway. Let's talk about a classical fight this past Saturday. Mike Tyson's new heavyweight champion. You saw the fight. Your observations on the new champ?
Well, I mean, the first thing I like about him, and when I notice this in any athlete, I know that they're going to be serious, is that he believes in studying. And he makes intelligent decisions. You know, whatever ability you have that, you know. Your responsibility then is to develop that ability to its fullest potential. And that's what gives you longevity and comprehensiveness. And I think when we recognize this in athletes, there's certain intelligence like Kareem has, like Dr. J has, like Michael Jordan has, Magic Johnson, Walter Payton, all the greatest athletes, Muhammad Ali, when you check them out, it's a great intelligence, of course the ability, and then just a certain type of attitude, man, that I see in Mike Tyson, you know, just the attitude, just kicking some butt.
That's some attitude.
Just
huh?
some heart, you know. And that heart is fueled with the intelligence and the fury and the desire. But I think that when the athletes believe in studying their game and learning it, like a coach knows it, if not better, then you have a serious combination and a force to be reckoned with for a long time.
I'm going to surprise you with something right now, and that is this. When you were growing up playing basketball on the street, your main guy, the guy that you had been everywhere you went, followed, the guy that you played your one-on-one with was Branford. Now, Branford and you have gone your separate ways. There's a bit of a feud going on. Maybe I'll use that word. I want to know if you feel that you'll be able to patch things up with this guy who used to be a member of your band and is still your blood brother.
I mean, we're cool right now, you know. I mean, personally, we're cool. You know, when you grew up with somebody like we played every gig we ever played together. Football, we still undefeated. So, you know, I mean, we're cool, man. I mean, it's just one of them things. You know how that is.
I'll leave it at that. Last question. Obviously, athletics and jazz, particularly through economics, have both taken their lumps in recent years, athletics through scandal. What's worth saving in both forms, jazz and athletics?
Well, the performances, you know, that's the only thing that's really important. Nothing else is significant. And when you see, like, Kareem hit one of the last-second sky hooks, or you see a beautifully executed play, Walter Payton, or Dr. J, I mean, that's what's worth saving.
Same thing in music?
And the same thing in music. The recordings made by Train and Duke Ellington, or you go out to a concert and somebody plays something that touches you, something with that urgency and the beauty. You know, the most important thing about any form is the beauty and the joy that it brings, or the thought that it provokes. And I mean, you see just you know, things on a certain level have a certain type of just beauty, man, otherworldly, you know. And if it didn't have that, it wouldn't have to exist.
You bring us a lot of beauty, too, and a lot of joy, and you provoke a lot of reactions and thoughts through your music. Wynton, I tell you, it's a rare treat, indeed, to talk to you about sports, but we had to find some way to get you on this show.
Oh, man.
Thanks,
Thank you.
man.
My pleasure.
We'll be back. Coach George Allen after this.